This place is a mess. So today's video will be a different one. Right, so since the setting for this video is different, I thought it might be the best opportunity to also do the content kind of differently. And I'll explain why. I always wanted to create this channel into the medium where I can share my experience and know-how. And the first 4 videos that I did were kind of that, but also forced me to actively seek resources, information, and sources for that content. So I decided to get back to the drawing board. And since I was doing a retrospect on my past 3 years as a CMO of Contentino, I decided to make this into a therapy session and basically create a different kind of a digital marketing / CMO course for you, where I share the 5 mistakes I did as a chief marketing officer / digital marketer, so we don't have to. My name is Mark and you're watching Marketing Right Side Up. And before we deep dive into these 5 mistakes I made, please consider subscribing, liking, and hitting the notif bell for the next video. Also, drop a comment. What would you want to see in the next one? And if you are here mostly for the social media news, you can subscribe to my weekly newsletter in the pinned comment. I have written it down because I have a terrible memory. And that's basically my first mistake that I did, and also a lesson learned, hopefully for you, that I decided to name structure. If you ever worked for a startup or a small business that requires you to have multiple hats on your head and do different tasks, you are not just focusing on strategy in marketing, you are not focusing on performance ads, but you are also doing the content, you are also doing the outreaches, you are doing partnerships, you are doing brand stuff. There's a lot of requirements, but also responsibilities that you need to take care of. And if you're young, in your mid-20s, early 30s, you might feel like you have good enough memory so you'll remember everything. But when it starts to pile up, when it starts to compounding, it's not manageable. And usually you found out when it's too late. And that's also one of the mistakes and lessons learned that I took from my past experience. As a bonus, I have ADHD, so my brain requires structure, but I hate keeping structure, if that makes sense. It's like if your body craves orange juice, like freshly squeezed orange juice, and you get yourself that freshly pressed orange juice, and you're like, oh my God, this is so good. Why am I not doing this every day? And you will decide that you will do this every day, and then you don't do it for like 2 years again, and then you do it again and you're like, oh my God, this is so amazing, why am I doing it? That's basically my brain and structure. As I function is that I always chase the most pressing matter. There's something always blowing up, there's some crisis, there's some new top level priority that I need to chase and need to get to the bottom of. And this causes the less important and less prioritized tasks to get postponed. The worst thing that happened to me is that from the very beginning, I wanted to keep my team happy. The satisfaction of my team was of utmost priority. And after a couple months and years, the team happiness really grew and it suddenly became less of a priority. So whenever something surfaced for the team and they required a one-on-one that we used to have on a regular basis, since I did not find it as important as before, I was like, yes, there will be one-on-ones this week, next week. Okay, we did not make it, so next month. And I postponed these one-on-ones, for like quarters, which again created not so happy mood in the team. I also struggle with reading or finding the time to read, finding the right mindset to read, finding the time to watch YouTube videos, to educate myself and not feel guilty about it. I found out very late in my career that setting up a time slot in calendar for reading or for YouTube videos every day, every second day, half an hour, makes it a priority, makes it something of importance. And when you do this, when you find the time, when you set the structure, you function way better. At least I do function way better. And I don't keep pushing that guilt in front of me that I really wanted to watch this, but I don't have time, stuff like this. Also, another thing that was basically the first thing that I proposed when I got to Contentino was making a dashboard for all the teams to be on the same page, having the current MRR growth, the current churn rate, the newest client closed on one dashboard, on one TV, so people from dev team, product team, CSM team, marketing team can get up to speed very quickly without having the need for meetings or actively seeking that information. This proposal was accepted, but it was not a priority. Fast forward almost 3 years, I decided to go on my paternity leave that I'm currently on, and the company decided to seek another CMO. So I needed to create a offboarding document, basically a knowledge base, single source of truth document for a person that will take the mantle after me. So I started with this quite early on, and I started to create a simple Google Sheet dashboard with links to all the documents, all the tables, sheets, heap analytics reports, websites, who are the owners, where to find the login information, how often that particular tool is built, separate sheets for each vertical of my team, what are the goals of product marketing, what are the goals of content, what are the goals of performance, what are the goals of partnership, affiliates, events, stuff like this. And I found out that keeping such document would help me tremendously, not with the organization, because I always poop through, but with the stress. Since I did not have this single source of truth document from the get-go, I very often fell into the pit hole of multiple copies of the same document because I shared it with different people, having not clearly set goals in one place, and we had it in different conversations, in Slacks, in email threads, in different sheets, in different Google Docs. It was a mess. I always knew where it was, but having such dashboard from the beginning would help me tremendously ease the stress of having to figure out where it was doing the detective work that basically cost me very expensive minutes and maybe even hours. I don't have any template that I would share with you, but you can get inspired by my own sheet. Second lesson learned, or second mistake that I did, was that I fell in love with my solution and not the problem. This is a saying I believe it's in all of business, not just marketing and not just B2B SaaS marketing, which used to be my field. But there's this saying that don't fall in love with your solution or product, fall in love with the problem. And I tend to struggle with this. My most recent experience with this is this YouTube channel. I wanted to create a YouTube channel where, one, I will be forced to keep up with the social media management world and digital marketing world while I'm on my 6 months paternity leave, because if I did not keep up with the world, I would feel stressed and I would feel like I fell out of it, which would essentially then create another layer of stress for me, which I don't want to have again. And also, two, I wanted to share my knowledge, know-how, experience from the past 15 years of being a digital marketer / social media manager / CMO. But when I started this YouTube channel a month ago, I quickly fell off from this goal and started to chase the more pressing topics like the TikTok ban, explanation of the TikTok ban, explanation of the algorithms, talking about the AI and the future of social media, which still stem from my experience and are basically built on presentations that I gave as part of my previous job on multiple conferences, but it's not really particularly like my experience. I had to chase that topic. Also, to broaden up the brand awareness, I dipped my toes into the short form content, and I set up a goal to create one short form content a day and one long form content a week that will be then translated into a newsletter. And this very quickly consumed me, and I started to spend a lot more time on polishing the videos, on how it looks, what value it provides, but I kind of steered away from the original idea. And the original idea was that I will be for 6 months on paternity leave to spend time with my almost 2-year-old daughter, because I wanted to have that quality time while she's still a baby. And this whole YouTube channel marketing, keeping up, was just a side gig. And I quickly, again, fell in love with the solution, not the problem, or the prior idea behind the solution. So yeah, that was this channel. But also this happened to me in Contentino multiple times. Most recent experience was the Contentino rebranding. Contentino as a tool fell into the commodity market, where there were a lot of competitors in a saturated market that provided very similar, if not the same, solution, experience, and product as Contentino did. And since we were not the biggest and also not the wealthiest product, our best course of action was to differentiate with a strong branding. So we started a almost 2-year journey of rebranding Contentino, because the original brand was not really suitable for that shift, for that tone of voice, for that radical differentiation. So we created a new concept with external consultant Eugen. And then our in-house team with Chris and Stano did the rest till the final product was released. Logo type, colors, fonts, new website, new tone of voice, new goals, and new positioning as well. I would have probably quit Contentino sooner, but I really fell in love with what it could offer, what it could be one day, and I really wanted to ensure that it will be done. And therefore, I pushed it through, and it did not necessarily impact negatively the company, but it impacted negatively my mental health because I was due for a change and due for a break, but I really wanted to push it through. And don't get me wrong, the rebranding is awesome. I really love how it looks, how it feels, how the new website converts, what it does as a package. But it's fair to say that it would probably look the same even if I left it in the process a couple months earlier. And this is not necessarily a negative business impact case, but having this mentality of falling in love with your product and solution and not the problem can negatively impact your product and your business and your goals significantly, especially if you get product blindness and you don't see how the real market shifts and changes and that you might not be a fit anymore. Third lesson learned, or third mistake that I did, was that I was obsessing with benchmark. So the lesson learned will be don't obsess with benchmarks too much. Just because some competitor or some similar product to yours, some similar company to yours does something in some way, it does not necessarily mean it will work for you and it will work as it did for them for you. There's this book called Steal Like an Artist, and it has a lot of good points about how to get inspired by your competitors, how to twist and turn and implement into your communication, your product, your whatever, for it to benefit you. The inspiration part is okay, but when you start to compare yourself with that competitor, that product, that whatever, and you start benchmarking your revenue, your churn rate, open rates, click-through rates, engagement rates, your traffic growth on your website, number of testimonials, number of reviews, you quickly lose track of what's important and what's the overarching goal and get obsessed in a rabbit hole of comparisons and like tweaking little things to get better, finding hacks, focusing on how to beat them in one metric or another, and basically lose track of the main goal. Why this is not healthy and could be potentially dangerous as well is that there are many differentiating factors like different product, different country, different market, different audience, different price point, different ARPA, different team composition, location of the team, different CAC and CLTV ratios, different financing behind the company. All these things are massive differentiating factors which can imply the end result and therefore that benchmarking data significantly. Also similar to the previous point, so benchmarking at a level is great, but getting too obsessed with benchmarks without the additional context and the data is dangerous. Don't do it. Fourth mistake or the lesson learned was not setting double goals. And I'll explain. If you work for a startup, B2B SaaS company, or any company that has structure of owners, shareholders, or stakeholders outside the active management of the company, you tend to shrink down the goals into the sales goals or the MRR goals, which then are not really well translated into your team's goals and what the team should do. For example, if our goal will be a 20% growth of the revenue, you need to have this in mind as a manager, as a CMO, as a board level director. Don't bother your team with this and dissect that goal into smaller, tangible goals that are in your control. For example, you cannot approach your content manager with the goal that we need 20% MRR growth this year. The content manager has no real impact on this metric because if you do omnichannel, content is only one part of your funnel and of your marketing mix. Therefore, breaking up content output by 20% will not result in revenue growth of 20%. Also, how do you evaluate if content manager is meeting that goal? Cannot, because revenue growth will be translated at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year, and you need something to keep up with this plan of yours. Therefore, set the growth plans and the growth goals for yourself as the manager of the team and for the shareholders, stakeholders, and the owners, but translate those goals for your team in goals that are controllable by them. So an example with the content manager, that means outputting content that will be not focused only on the awareness level of the funnel, but also on the middle of the funnel or even bottom of the funnel. Content that can serve as demand generation or content that will help convert existing trial lists and leads into paying customers. It's your duty to find the balance in the mix and be able to translate those revenue goals into tangible and controllable output goals. Fifth lesson learned, or a mistake that I did, was that I was not really living up to the saying of done is better than perfect. What this means is that I was often focused on perfecting the output to meet the standards of the brand that I've set and not focusing on the quantity at times. There's massive debate on whether quantity is more than quality, and it's another whole topic that we can have in a different video. But keep in mind that in some channels and in some cases, quantity does outperform quality. If you don't understand this concept and you focus on the perfection of the output and meeting some standards that are mostly made up, you can be robbing yourself, your team, and your company of potential growth that can be done by content that's not perfect, that's not in the best language, not meeting the market standards or whatever to a degree, but that can be quickly deployed and do its effect, even though maybe not as good of an impression as a perfect content would, but effect nonetheless, and in most cases faster as well. Since I've been consulting a lot of content creators on TikTok and YouTube, there's this notion that the more time you spend on a content for these short form content platforms, the less it will perform. And that's a great case and example of how done is better than perfect. How even the raw content can reek authenticity and resonate with the audience more than a perfectly edited, cut, and mastered content. But don't get me wrong, this is not solely a content thing. This can translate to every aspect of your management and of the way how you lead your teams, how you approach budgeting, communication, and all aspects of marketing life. For me, it was not that much about content and about the fast output as it was me obsessing with the unobtainable goal of having perfect attribution. As a marketer, you probably know that attribution is a problem if you have omnichannel. What's omnichannel? Omnichannel is that you are present on all or at least multiple channels in marketing. So not just blog content, but also social media content, paid social, also maybe even TV content, printed media, podcasts, performance ads, paid social ads, influencers, ambassadors, affiliate, partnerships, live events, webinars, demand gen, stuff like this. And if you have omnichannel, it's super difficult to attribute all the leads, all the conversions, assisted conversions, and the entire path from the first approach till the paid conversion of a client, and it will be even worse with the cookieless world. However, we were on a really good track with something we called user journey, which was a mixed multi-channel attribution model that we built on top of Heap Analytics, our own client database data, and Google Analytics combined with the Facebook Pixel, LinkedIn Pixel, and these other ad networks metrics. However, we never really got into that point where we could trust this data, mainly because we had unmeasurable goals. Unmeasurable not in the case of wrongly set goals, but in the case of not setting double goals. Therefore, we were focusing on the revenue growth per separate channels, which was not trackable. And in the future, it will be even worse. So my lesson learned and recommendation here is pick one analytics tool. In many cases, it could be Google Analytics 4, if you can work with it. For us, it could have been Heap Analytics, and just go with it. Populate it with as many data sources as you can and actively persuade yourself and decide that you will be trusting this data. In many cases, those data will be wrong or incomplete. But since you have all the channels measured in one tool, at least you know how to guesstimate and how to do educated decisions based on what you have and what you can see. And a bonus tip that potentially could be its own separate video is always go omnichannel. Never rely on just social media to do your social selling and convert leads into paying customers. Never rely just on ads, because scaling ad is very hard and it will be less and less possible, especially if you're in a market where there are bigger and wealthier players than you are. The funnel is not dead. The funnel is still here to stay. Develop your omnichannel, develop your funnel, focus on lead nurturing. If you can, de-anonymize the data that you are getting into that funnel. Have account-based marketing where you can approach those leads, close them with your sales, retarget them with your ads, recycle the content that you have from blog to video to short form to retargeting ads. Just don't rely on one channel, because that's not how you build a brand, and that's not how you can sustain growth or even grow in the first place. Yeah, I think that's it. This has been a very long video. If you found the value in these mistakes or lessons that I've gathered, please subscribe, drop a like, hit the notif bell for the next video. Let me know in the comments what video would you like to see next. And if you're interested in the future of social media and how the strategy in 2024 is not really what it used to be and why social media are not social, check the previous video here. And for the rest of you, I'll see you in the next one.